There was one player who called me at 7 p.m. that he's broken his 2 front teeth. I'm like, training? An accident? Did you get punched? He's like, no, I spent 10 hours getting my sleeve done. I got up, I hadn't eaten, I fell face flat and broke my 2 front teeth.
Oh, no.
I was like, just tell me you got punched instead. Like, that to me was just
Yeah.
oh, your 2 front teeth.
Was the sleeve any good? Was it worth it?
I'm not a tattoo person.
Yeah. Gives me great pleasure to welcome to the Sports Dentistry podcast this week, Dr. Joanne Wansa from Down Under. I got it right, I think.
You got it wrong. You got it wrong.
Right off the bat.
He's living up to his reputation of being terrible at pronunciations.
I was repeating in my head for about 10 times there as well before I tried that.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
It's great to have you on, Joanne. So we'll just start off by, if you can give us a little bit of a background to yourself, how you got into dentistry and how that led down the road into sports dentistry.
Okay. Well, I started dentistry in 2004. I did a medical science undergrad degree, and I was really thinking about medicine, and then I really hated anatomy, and I couldn't handle cancers and death. And then It's a funny story because we went to the information night for the science and medical faculty, and they had the student representatives for the dental faculty come up, and I remember the guy Sal being up there, and he's like, yeah, he's a social rep. We go to the footy, we go to the pub. I'm like, I'm doing dentistry as a joke to all my medical science friends. And it actually eventuated. I went and spoke to my GP, who was a female with an Arab background, and my family dentist, was also from a Arab background, Palestinian, Iraqi, and they both said to me, do dentistry, it's better for a girl. And I just went, and then when I got looking into what medicine entailed and what dentistry, and I really liked the idea of dentistry, I applied and I got accepted the next day, like sat the interviews and whatnot. So it kind of fell into my lap and I ran with it. But when I finished dentistry, as I was studying, my family dentist, she said to me, she's like, go and work somewhere for 3 years and come back, as a flippant joke when I was in my early 20s. And that's exactly what happened at 28, 29. I finished dentistry and I'm like, I'm out of Sydney, I'm going. I went to Canberra. And by default, I ended up treating the Canberra Raiders, one of the NRL teams in the capital of city there. And I used to have all my Bulldogs photos, posters up in my surgery room in Canberra, and the Canberra Raiders would come and put their ones on top of it for me. So then I decided I need to come back home. I can come back home. So where I am, Campsie, it's like literally a 2-minute drive from Belmore Sports Ground, where it's the heartland of the Bulldogs. I was born in the 80s. I was born during the era of the Bulldogs, where we won 4 premierships, and it was just, with the older cousins. My cousins lived behind the stadium, so they used to sit on the carport and watch the game. Like, it's that kind of community spirit that we kind of grew up in. I remember first year and second year dentistry, we had to do an elective, and I chose sports dentistry as an elective only because my friend in medicine, Peter, was doing sports medicine as an elective, and Peter and me were massive Bulldog fans. And I said to Pete, I'm like, get me in. And this is the 2004-2005 team. These are our premiership winning. That's the last time we won a premiership. So the big names. Pete spoke to Dr. Hugh Hazard, who was Bulldogs, New South Wales, and Australian doctor at that era in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. And he said, yep, come along. The dork in me, glasses, Sydney Uni shirt, clipboard, went 2005 to one of their recovery sessions. And I walk in, and if I'm 22, all the boys are probably 22 around my age. And I walk in and, do you wear a mouth guard? Have you had an injury? A lot of them are pulling out their little single tooth flipper to show me. at Bankstown Sports Club, and I was just laughing. And then they're all like, "Oh, they hate their dentists. They're scared of the dentists. They don't get checkups. They don't wear mouth guards." And I was just like, when you go in and you're like, "Oh my God, I love these guys," and then you walk out, you're like, "Oh, they're just normal people." Like they hate the dentist. But yeah, it just grew from that when I came back into to Sydney in end of 2010, and I started working with my family dentist. I took over the practice 3 years in. So in around 2014, 2015, one of my young patients who's now 21, he would have been 10, 11 at the time. He's on a appointment. He goes, "Would you sponsor my team?" And I was like, "Sure," not knowing what team he's talking about. So I end up going to this junior club. So the Bulldogs have 12 junior clubs in the area, like park footy, and they're called the St. George Dragons. They're wearing a Rooster jersey, but they're a Bulldog team. So I ended up sponsoring that club for around 7 years on their jersey, and I've got two of the players are now NRL level players. So I've known them since they were 14. And by default, I know a lot of the juniors coming through that are now playing around other clubs. And I think I've just built that relationship where they come and they see me. And now going back to Peter, he is a orthopedic surgeon, and he's the Bulldogs club doctor now. He was with the Tigers, so he just sent me random Tiger players, and they'd rock up into my dental pub over here, and they'd see all the Bulldog jerseys. And then, yeah, players come and go and whatnot. And then Peter also gave my number to the Sydney Swifts, who's a netball team. So when they get knocked, they give me a call and they come here. So I've got probably around 5 or 6 of the NRL teams that, they'll call me. The players, word of mouth, this person told me this person told me that, or the doctors between each other. And it's really funny how most of the problems are not like injuries, it's wisdom teeth. And I'll be like, "Oh, really? That's their age group." And you tell
Yeah.
them repeatedly, from 16, you need to get your wisdom teeth. Yeah, I'll do off season, off season. Off season comes, guess where they go? They go Bali, they go Vegas, they go to the UK, and then it's on repeat. So it's like, okay, let's give you antibiotics, let's clean, let's see if you got an injury. I had 2 players, one injured their foot, one injured their shoulder. And as soon as they did those surgeries, they like, "Can you pull out my wisdom teeth now?" And I was like, okay, like it's just, to me, they're just people. But yeah, I suppose I love my community and my sport, and this is where I ended up.
Yeah, that's great. So much to unpack. I don't know where to start.
I'm the talker.
First of all, as a disclaimer, both myself and Umar have lived and worked in Australia a little bit, so we have a little bit of an idea of different things. You worked in Canberra. Now, I was told Canberra is only known for 2 things: fireworks and porn. Don't go to Canberra.
Fish week.
so,
I lived in an apartment, and the guy downstairs was always smoking pot. So I called the police because I'd get high by the time I'd walk upstairs. And the police were like, "This is a civil matter. You have to call the sheriff." And I'm just like, oh.
The second thing I wanted to pick up on there was the elective. Can you go into that a little bit? When we did our electives, now I'm not sure what way it happens now, but I did my elective back in 2005, and we did it in Melbourne Hospital. We went out. That was the first time I was in Australia, and we did it in Melbourne. But we were just like shadowing for 2 weeks. Can you explain how you were able? Was sports dentistry a thing back then? Was it something that you invented? Like, was that like a term you invented because your colleague was doing sports medicine and you spruced it up?
Yeah.
Can you explain how you were able to design that elective at that time?
Well, basically, we had plans to do something else, but that fell apart because we were 70 people in our class, and 7 out of the 70 were Lebanese background. So we had wanted to go to Lebanon and do work with the UN and the Red Cross and Red Crescent and the universities there. But there was a little mini war like there is now broke out. So the dean's like, "You're not going." So I was like, we had to figure something else out. So then I I was speaking to Peter, and he was doing, he was shadowing the Bulldogs team doctor. And I said, can you please ask him if I can do, come in and it's just observations, just like my little questionnaires, and just, getting the feel of what to go with sports dentistry besides mouth guards. So yeah, I shadowed a couple of their mouth guard sessions and a couple of their medical recovery sessions.
Yeah, that's really interesting because back then I didn't know sports dentistry even existed.
No, literally we had one lecture and one lab in first year to make mouth guards, and that was Dr. Brett Dorney. He taught us how to make mouth guards back in 2004, and I still have the one that I made. And he was the old school stuff.
Vacuum former, yeah.
And it's come a long way. But
the big thick EVA and just one sheet sometimes.
That's it. And good luck. Yeah.
Why is it so big?
It's actually really interesting. You talk about having that relationship with the medical team and the medical staff, and obviously your friend Peter was going through medicine at the same time, and that relationship's continued now to when you're working in your practice and you're seeing these players. For people who are listening to this, we talk a lot about the teamwork that's involved and having the medics show us be feeling valued to the medics and really feeling like an integral part of that team. Just talk us through that relationship that you had with Peter in terms of that medical fraternity and how that really helped shape your career now as being a sports dentist and working so closely with so many athletes.
Yeah, so before Peter came to the Bulldogs, I knew some of the personnel there because I'm also one of the sponsors for the last 9 years at the Bulldogs, the last 10, 11 years with the juniors. But just being present on game day for the juniors, and I'm talking also Harold Mats, which are under 17s, the Jersey Flag, the SG for under 19s, under 21s. I'd go to Belmont and I'd do the mouth guards in the session in their changing rooms or their medical rooms there, and it's just being present. So they have my number, so they call me if there's an injury. There's been so many injuries over there, and then you're like, "Were you wearing a mouth guard?" No. I was just like, "Oh, okay." And then you've also got Stephen Harlem, who's going to be talking to his endodontist. I work closely with him in Sydney, and he said to me once at one of our West lecture nights, he's like, "Why don't they wear a mouth guard?" And I'm like, because all of them have broken noses and can't breathe. And the other thing is that most of them, it's true. And then when they come in and you're doing mouth guards and you're looking at the size of the tray, like I should have recorded it, like you have these narrow jaws that they would, could never afford to get expanders, or B, it was never in the plans because it interfered with them trying to make the cut for representative teams. It's far and few that you see a 14 to 16-year-old player with braces, and when they come through, and I'm like, "Wow, you got a retainer? You got braces?" Like, "Yeah, my parents said I had to," and like, that's really good. Like, and they're the ones whose teeth present much better. You got your class 2s that they're the ones who get injured. They break their teeth before they break their nose. So yeah, seen a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So you're mod in the rugby league. We'll just touch on this briefly. So I've had this conversation with Umar before, that because we've had lots of international guests on the podcast before, and I've said, like, no matter what country you're in, the term football or footy means different sports. So in a lot of countries it means soccer, but in Ireland it'll mean Irish football, Gaelic football. In America it'll mean American football, but Australia is unique that there's maybe 3 or 4 different sports footy represents depending on where you live. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in Sydney, it's predominantly rugby league. In Melbourne, Victoria, and South Australia, it's AFL. So that's kind of got ties to the Irish Gaelic football. And then you've got rugby union, which is, it's a more, I don't know, I don't like it. But anyway, it's, when I was at uni, they had, because uni's rugby union, they had the annual Dentistry versus Medicine rugby union match. While I was at uni, I made them change the jersey for Dentistry to blue and white. So they actually, I don't know what color is now. I don't know the rules of rugby union, but they wore blue and white jersey.
We've had the British and Irish Lions do the tour last year, so we've heard a lot of media around it, and myself and Newmar work with some of the rugby union players over here, and they were talking about how it was a really successful tour for helping raise rugby union in Australia as well, because rugby league just dominates over there.
Yeah. They had the union. I don't know what it is, but you read in the media, they had a lot of money issues and teams fold in, and just it didn't help with COVID where no one could travel to play. Like rugby league, they just did a bubble in Queensland, and they all just played in Queensland.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of rugby league, and I think it's one of these things where I don't see it as much in the UK because it's rugby union's obviously such a big thing here when it comes to certainly being in Scotland and Edinburgh and Glasgow, and Scotland rugby doing quite well. But I remember being in Australia and when the State of Origin was on, and that grips the East Coast big time. When I first went to Australia, I was only 17. I lived in Bundaberg, which is in like north of Brisbane. So I was there playing cricket, but I became a Queenslander. So I still am a Queenslander, even though I worked in Sydney as well afterwards.
So am I more. It's all good. I lived in Brisbane, so I'm technically a Broncos.
But I remember when I went back to Australia again to work, so that was 2012, and I remember walking through the streets when the State of Origin was, and I put my Queensland top on. That was a mistake. That was a mistake. Walking about Darling Harbour with my Queensland top on was not a good idea. I mean, for people who are listening to this and watching this, you've made it obviously very clear that you're a big Bulldogs fan and you're invested in the club and you're invested in the youth structure. You made a really good point there actually about mouth guards and broken noses. Now, that's something where people who, if they're not involved with sports or sports dentistry a lot, they'll probably not put the two together because it's not something that you would see that often. Like, most average Joes, yes, okay, if they've got some broken noses, then it's few and far between. But in a contact sport like that, where it's more common for them to have this sort of injury. So what do you say to those sort of players that say, well, I can't breathe through my nose, I'm not going to wear a mouth guard? How do you have that conversation with your athletes then?
Well, I actually had one of the NRL players in last year, and he's like, he struggles to play with the mouth guard because he's always congested and he's got a broken nose. And he's like, what do you think about mouth taping? I'm like, no, you'll suffocate to death. How can you take your mouth if you can't breathe through your nose? I was like, no, just because some influencer said it, you don't go and do it.
Yeah.
I was just like, no, don't do that. But the ones that have the gag reflex, the ones that have the narrow jaw, I shorten it to halfway through the molar. You thin it out as much as you can from the posterior areas. Like, I'm like, you need to. Like, I've had kids whose parents on the sideline will cut the mouth guard to only like go 10 teeth instead of back to their 6s and 7s, because it's the front teeth that are going to, get injured. Yeah. If you get hit on the back, you're going to crack your jaw. I've had 2 plays in the last year where they've cracked their jaw, they've had to do root canal on the 3 or the 4 where it was. And then by default, they've had the wisdom tooth that I've said to taken out during the surgery. So they're usually the phone calls from Peter is like, who's your Max back friend? So now I've made that connection to him, and I've told Norm, who's the Max back, who's a massive Bulldog fan with me, that he's got to be at the sports dentistry, because he's set a lot of broken jaws over his career.
In sports dentistry, it's not just about treating injuries. It's about optimizing oral health for peak performance.
That's right, because when athletes push their limits, every detail matters, even their oral health.
That's why the Sports Dentistry podcast is being powered by Philips, true innovators in oral health technology.
Philips Sonicare toothbrushes use advanced sonic technology to disrupt plaque biofilm, removing up to 20 times more plaque than a manual brush.
And that's critical for athletes. With high carb diets, dry mouth, and frequent energy supplements, there are greater risk of caries and gum disease.
Philips backs evidence-based dentistry, giving us tools that fit perfectly into performance-driven treatment plans.
So whether you're helping your athletes recover, protect, or perform,
elevate your protocol with Philips.
That was a question I was going to bring up, because this is also a topic that has a lot of debate in sports dentistry, and you kind of touched on it earlier when you were saying this age group of athlete that we tend to see with partially erupted wisdom teeth are just that demographic of that age profile, an issue, never mind with the main athletes. But the debate is over taking out partially erupted wisdom teeth for protection against jaw fractures, as to try to reduce the risk of jaw fractures. And in the UK, where we graduated and brought up, there's all the nice guidelines and how they're really like against, you know, even if you have non-athletes that have really repeated episodes of pericarditis, it's almost like you have to have had a certain criteria before you can justify it. But I had the impression that in Australia, it was a wee bit more selective than that. It was more of a routine thing to remove partially erupted wisdom teeth as a job of action in rugby.
They will always be infected. And I'll get a call. There's one player who probably 3 times a year for the last 5 years needs antibiotics and clean because of wisdom teeth. I'm like, they don't fit. Take them out. Like, it's as simple as that.
And is that a common mindset in Australia?
Yeah. But it's not just my footballers. It's the uni students. Take them out mid-year, after semester. Or the other thing that I've got, the young females getting married. And I'm like, listen, your wisdom teeth is like this. You're going to get pregnant. Your hormones are going to go poof, and your wisdom teeth are going to start hurting you. And you're not going to take them out during pregnancy. I have taken some out during people's pregnancy. But it's that age group. It's the demographics of that age group.
Yeah.
I was 19. I had to take them out.
Exactly, and I think it's about being able to provide them with information about where they can go to when the shit hits the fan, right? Because that's what happens more often than not, is when you get a message from the doctors or from the medics saying what we're going to do, swollen face, and they're playing tomorrow, and it's so common.
I had that literally last year at the end of the year where they had I think it was the island teams against each other, like Samoa and Tonga and New Zealand. And I had a player from Penrith who he had a wisdom teeth infection. It's been going on for 2 years. And he asked me to speak to the Penrith team doctor about the wisdom teeth. I'm like, he's at the airport. I'll send a script to the pharmacy at the airport. Get your antibiotics. Go and play. Come back and take your wisdom teeth out. Like literally.
Just
you can lead a horse to water. You can lead them to water.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned earlier, a lot of athletes are just like normal patients. They're afraid of the dentist.
Yeah, they are.
They'll easily run into 120 kilos person, not a problem. Head first.
Tattoos everywhere and
But if you get them to lie back and open their mouth in their chair, they just get really anxious.
Oh, the weird and wonderful things I've seen. There was one player who called me at 7 p.m. that he's broken his 2 front teeth. I'm like, training? An accident? Did you get punched? He's like, no, I spent 10 hours getting my sleeve done. I got up, I hadn't eaten, I fell face flat and broke my 2 front teeth. I was like, just tell me you got punched instead. Like that to me was just oh, your 2 front teeth.
Was the sleeve any good? Was it worth it?
I'm not a tattoo person. I was like, no.
You mentioned something there that I'd be quite interested to hear as well, because obviously we're in the UK and I work mainly in Ireland. We're not as maybe multicultural as Australia, which has been built on immigrants. And you spoke there about the Islanders and a lot of Islanders, and there's some big athletes and big strong athletes come out of the Islanders.
Oh, I just made a mouth guard. I had to make it.
That's what I'm saying. Do you notice in providing dentistry, is there certain things that you have to take in consideration?
Yeah, you do. With dentistry, with and it's something they teach us at Sydney Uni, the whole multicultural social aspect of how you treat different cultures. We do have the Islanders, like you'll have a family that's got 6 or 7 kids and all 6 or 7 kids need a mouth guard. So back in the day, I used to be like, okay, I'll just, whatever your health fund pays, I'll cover it for your family. You get 7 kids playing 7 mouth. She's like, they're Islander family. She needs to feed them. They go through 2 shoe sizes a year. You know, socks and clothes and whatnot. We have rugby league is a more mid to lower socioeconomic demographic. Rugby union, you can pay you $500 for a mouth guard. You can't do that in rugby league. Not in
Yes.
Sydney Southwest, not in the west of Sydney.
Yeah.
So I actually had a bit of discussion about that, because in Australia we have, like, you need to consider the financial impact of dentistry, health funds, not health funds. If you can afford a mouth guard, is the club going to cover it for you? The Bulldogs asked me 10 years ago to become a preferred provider for West Fund, which is probably one of the least evil out of all the health funds, and they cover the mouth guard 100%. So all their junior, from the girls, because they're one of the only teams that used to cover girls too. So the girls teams, the boys teams, from the ages of the Harold Matts or Alicia Fiola, which is the under 17. So they were covered for mouth guards. In Australia, we have something called the Children's Dental Benefit Scheme, so CDBS. And I've been fighting and speaking to, I've got a few politicians who are my patients, and just asking them, why can't we put a mouth guard on this scheme? Why can't you just allocate $200 to a mouth guard on this scheme? And they were like, I put it up in our ADA, the Dental Association forum. I got massacred. I got told, no, everyone will rot the system. I'm like, for a $200 mouth guard, you want to rot the system? I've got people who, they come in with broke, in 2020, I had three kids under 12 who needed root canal on their front teeth. And most of these, the roots are not fully formed, so they have to go to Stephen Harlan.
I've heard a few quotes of mouth guards in Australia. Why are they so expensive?
I make them in-house. So I've been making them in-house.
Because
and
I make them in-house.
But they've gone up in price. Like the
actual material cost and stuff isn't overly expensive.
Has gone up.
Okay.
I used to be able to buy a blank for $4 or $5. Now the blanks are $10, $15.
Wow.
And then if you send it out to a lab, most of my colleagues send them out to labs. The lab's charging you $170 to $200. So what are you going to charge? You're going to have to charge $350, $400.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of in Australia, we deregulated dentistry around 20 years ago. So you don't have to be a dentist to own a dental practice. So you can have a lab technician who can go out. So they've got mobile mouth guards and mobile this and mobile that. They go out now to the clubs and they do them. There's no money in mouth guards. I used to do it for the clubs after hours because it's, I'm giving that to my community, right? You'd rather, if you think about it, a dentist would rather sit there, make one crown for $2,000 than make 10 mouth guards for $2,000.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that says a lot about dentistry and what the focus is in and priorities in people's lives.
But you know what the interesting thing is? That we've got a duty of care to be able to tell the parents about what the aftermath could be of dental trauma. Now, I've got a 6.5-year-old, and we were on the scooter today, scooting her to Breakfast Club this morning before school. And I said, look, we're going to have to get you a mouth guard made, because if she falls over, it's on my head, right? It's not on her head, it's on my head, and whatever. It's not just the financial aspect, which you've talked about there, but it's the psychological aspect, the emotional aspect. Everything that goes with it, absolutely everything that goes with it. So that's something that I think, as sports dentists, not just obviously here in the UK or in Australia, but as a wide fraternity or a worldwide fraternity, that we need to continue to work together, because it really should be something that's seen as it's a needs must thing, because the amount of stress it could stop from happening to families, because purely for the fact that they're wearing a custom made mouth guard. It would be incredible, because I've had patients just in the last few days who've had history of trauma, and they were saying they used to play hockey or whatever else. Now they're in a situation where they're going to have to spend a lot of money to try and get these things fixed now, where it could have been prevented if they had just worn a mouth guard. So what do you think needs to happen in Australia and in New Zealand to have, you said you had your politician friends who were taking it further, and you had some backlash from the community there. What do you think needs to happen for the community to be able to stand up and think this is something that we really need to drive forward?
See, I actually asked the Bulldogs last year if I can come in and talk to the players. Like, I see them, most of them come and see me at my work, or we had a VR Olympics the other week with the sponsors and the players. So I had my husband and my manager's 18-year-old with me, and we were at Canterbury Leagues, and they've got virtual golf, F1 racing, baseball, cricket, darts, and there was just a mini Olympics there with the sponsors. And the players walked in, and I had the 18-year-old whose face was just like awestruck, and he's like, the players all walked in, and one by one they'd come, they'd hug me, kiss me, hug me, kiss me. Hi Joe, hi Dr. Joe, hi Dr. So I've got that relationship with them, so they're comfortable with me because I've been there for 10 years. I mean, look at this. I've had that's me and my nieces and nephews in the team photo. I've had the
That's
team
nice.
photo every year for the last 9 years. I've been there more times than the coach and any of the players. I've been with 4 or 5 coaches. So I told them I want to come in and just have a chat to them. They get nutritionists in who talk to them. They get wealth management advisors and whatnot come in. I think I say to them, listen, guys, you've got your health fund. You're entitled to 2 free cleans a year because I'm a member of that fund. Come in and get it done. They're like, oh, I didn't know that. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're entitled to. And then it's about prioritizing. And I'm not doing it so they can post me. They don't post me. I post them. But it's more about, they'll post someone who gives them a freebie or whatnot. I'm like, I put value on as a professional. And then, some other people, some of the other sponsors, they're like, how do you get all the players in? I'm like, they have teeth. Like,
Yeah. So someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they're comfortable with me, then that's what it is.
So we've spoke a lot about you working with the Bulldogs and things like that, but like, is it your own dental practice that you have? Because I run a dental practice. Like, I wouldn't be able to survive just on my sports dentistry.
No,
work,
no,
even though they're good
it's
about.
not.
So, like, what?
That's
How
a
do you
passion. That's
do you
not
have
my
a
income.
yeah? So how do you combine that? How are you able to work? Are you like a general dentist providing the community?
I'm a
what is
general
the setup?
dentist in my community where I was born. So I see a lot of the junior clubs. I see a lot of people.
I couldn't do that. As Umar knows, I have to commute 2 hours away because I can't be the dentist.
John commutes 2 hours to work in the morning and then 2 hours home from work every day. So 4 hours a day, he is on the road.
And they're like, would you not just work at home? And I was like, no, everybody will just be looking free dentistry.
Today it took me 15 because it was raining like England. Like, it took me 15 today.
So
no, for me, it's
you've built a dental practice in the community where you grew up,
and
the Bulldogs was a big part of that, and you support the teams. And the
so it's the local junior teams. Now my nephews are playing with St. John's Eagles, which are one of the junior teams. I've made them their mouth guards. I've custom made them where they've all got their little things on. I've got probably around 8 mouth guards. I made 15 yesterday. I've got 8 here that people need to collect because all the trial matches are happening now. And that's because, they see me on social media or they see one of the kids with it. And because I do gimmicky things to it, I'll put their Tonga flag on it. The biggest thing in the last year, I call it the Jacob Carraz and Stephen Crichton, the Bulldog players effect, is they want just a white mouth guard with a cross, like literally. That's And then you'll have the boys come in that they want the Australian Indigenous flag. So I do that for them.
Yeah, I think that's what kids want. They want it to look cool as well now, don't they? It's not just about trying to wear it. And that's how we can try and get into it, right?
I'll sit here in my black scrubs and then I'll come out to call a kid, and the kid intentionally will be wearing a Parramatta jersey or a Rabbitohs jersey just to G me up. And I think
who is the big rival? Who's the big Bulldog rival? Because there's quite a few teams in Sydney, isn't there?
Yeah,
Who's the big Bulldog rival?
As a Bulldog born in the 80s, we hate Parramatta and St. George. My husband used to be a Parramatta fan. I say that in front of his family and they laugh. He comes with me to all the events. We've been together for 6 years, so he comes with me to all the events and whatnot. So there's no Parramatta anything in our.
That's hilarious that you said he used to be a Parramatta fan. So, Joanne, that leads us quite nicely to kind of later on this year. So, John and I, and along with Imogen and a few others, have been working really hard in trying to set up the Australia-New Zealand Sports Dentistry Association, because in the UK we got it kicked off, South Africa we got it kicked off, and I said to John, I goes, we need to take this out to Australia, New Zealand.
We absolutely need it. Yeah, we need it.
Umar runs after the sun. He just runs after the sun. He said himself, where will be warm enough in September to satisfy me, or October, is it? I don't even know what month we're going.
Yeah. And once we got bits and pieces, you were one of the first people that reached out. We're like, this is really good, this is really interesting, and something, and I can, we can hear your passion.
I feel like it's been falling on deaf ears, like dentistry is just, the little brother just on the side. That my friend Peter in final year medicine, he messaged and he's like, so apparently all you need to know about dentistry we learnt in 4 hours. They had a 4-hour morning session where they got taught by a pediatric dental professor, that you've got 32 adult teeth, 20 baby teeth. When his son was 5 and his teeth are sharp teeth growing behind each other, he sent me a photo of what's going on with my son. I'm like, his teeth, it's normal.
No, just go back to that 4 hours last week.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think one of the big issues in Australia is the fact that dentistry and dental treatment is not covered by our Medicare, and there's a public hospital that just covers bare basics if you have a concession card. So there's a lot of pushback on the price and the cost and whatnot. But then you sit there and you're like, how much my chair costs? Like when someone says to me, why is dentistry so expensive in Australia? And I'm like, the chair you're sitting on is $80,000 now. I was like, what about the overhead, the HR? I'm like, you want to go to Lebanon or Turkey and how much are they paying their staff? What insurances are they paying? So it's that conversation. Why is someone valuing their tattoo I had someone who feathered, I had to Google what this is, feathered her eyebrows for $700, but wouldn't pay for her cleaning $250, $300. I'm like, are you kidding me? It was an argument I had over Christmas with the hairdresser. I was like, why is dentistry so expensive? I'm like, I used to go to you every month to dye my hair. This has been 6 years natural. So I've saved money and chemicals and headaches and time. And then I'm like, if you go twice a year, you're preventing anything major from happening. People are paying more for their hair than they are for their teeth.
Yeah, and it's the same everywhere. It's not just, it's worldwide. And I think that's one of the challenges as well of trying to help athletes and get into clubs is, like, we can't just walk in with a physio bed, or we can't say to the physio, can we get a lens? Because a lot of people can use a physio room for multi purposes. But when it comes to what we can provide without actually having our dental chair set up, we're a little bit restricted. And then the cost of getting that set up, it's not just having a chair, it's putting the electrics in for the chair, it's putting the air compression in for the chair, having the compressor to run that, having the suction.
Yeah, that's true.
There's so much to it that we can't just very easily, we have a spare room at the training ground, we'll just set up there.
We're not in America where they have in-house dentists at their football clubs or their hockey clubs or their basketball clubs. There are some teams in America that have that.
Not a lot of them. You'd be surprised that some of them had them. I know Chelsea Football Club in London had it one stage, but it's not being used as far as I know.
Yeah.
The only place that we have seemed to hear of it being successfully used is in Brazil, in Sao Paulo and in Rio. They have a dental set up at the training ground but it's very much more doing what you're doing. It's not just the elite players. They're working very much with the academies, the underage players, the communities in the area, and everybody that's associated with the club. They run it as a dental clinic that way. Yes, they look after obviously the elite players, but it's more about everybody that has to do with the club, the underage setups, the feeder teams, the community around it as well. And
Yeah.
then there's the only other place that I've seen it actually, because a lot of the American ones, they're still using dental clinics positioned close to the training ground or
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. The only other one I've heard of is Oregon, because that's Nike. So Nike have funded that. So they have funded like the dental for all the college athletes in there. So there's still a lot of work to do that. And I think it's going back
there
to
is.
a question that I asked you about how can we run a business and, supply sports dentistry, because we're not at that level where we can just have a sports dentistry clinic.
When we have the kids call up or the parents call up to say, I want to get my kid a mouth guard, and the kid comes in, we actually tell the parents, let's do a checkup. Let's see what's going on. And we've intercepted a lot of, your kid actually needs this. I'm sending your kid to ENT. They've got real bad airways. I can see their tonsils are kissing. Your kid probably needs an expander at 9. You need to go, so it's not just the mouth guard is what brings them in. And then we start talking about other things. It's more holistic, not like tree hugging holistic, but full.
Here, if tree hugging will get them through the door, I'm happy to tree hug.
Yeah. But I like what you guys are doing. I didn't know there was anyone out there doing this. And as soon as I saw his online lecture, I'm like, no, I'm reaching out. This is something that I'm interested in.
We are delighted to have Ionate as a sponsor for the Sports Dentistry podcast. Are you looking for a water bottle that's built to keep up with your active lifestyle? Look no further than Ionate, the totally leak-proof water bottles with triple lock technology to prevent spills no matter where you're headed. With a simple one-touch opening mechanism, you can sip on the go without hassle. Plus, Ionate's sleek modern designs are not only functional but can be personalised just for you. Made from high-quality steel, these bottles are easy to clean and best of all, they're sustainable. From 320ml to 1200ml, Ionate has the perfect size for you, whether you're just out for a jog or going on a long hike. And it doesn't stop at the water bottles. Ionate also has travel mugs and flasks to keep your drinks just right wherever you are. Ionate have officially licensed water bottles for the NBA, NFL, MotoGP and British and Irish Lions, so you know you're getting the best. I have been using the bottles for a long time now and cannot recommend them highly enough, so head over to www.ionate.co.uk to get your hands on the best bottles in the business, bar none. Now back to the pod.
Yeah, I know, and that's something that we're really looking forward to, and it's going to take people like your passion and your history and your experience to actually showcase to other clinicians out there what can actually be done. And it's not just about rubbing shoulders with the elite, but it's actually more important to be with the academies and with the younger generation, because those are the ones that we kind of need to target and educate and provide prevention for as the time gets on. And I do have to say thank you, because you've obviously gave us Stephen's contact details, and he's confirmed that he's going to be speaking on day, and also the GOAT of Australian. I can say GOAT, yeah, I probably can say GOAT of Australian sports dentistry, and Brett Dorney, who you'd also mentioned, and we managed to track him down, and he's him and his son have been very much involved with getting Brett over the line in terms of making sure he's okay to speak on the day, because he's obviously going through some issues himself. But the speaker list that we've got and the people that we're trying to attract is people like you, but also more importantly, it's people who didn't really know it existed and didn't really know that they've got an opportunity that they're able to.
I've sent the messages to the sports doctors. I'm like, you need to be here. They need to know, because I get the phone calls. And is it wisdom tooth? Did they break their tooth? Is it an abscess? Most of them have the abscess lower seat. They don't know about it.
Yeah, the fact that we've got 3 of the biggest sports medical colleagues in Australia speaking at the event just shows you that they're really keen and they're interested to spread the word, but they're not very keen to meet the local dentist or dental healthcare professionals, because they want to create that relationship, just like you've done there with your team, like Peter, etc. as well. How do you see sports dentistry developing in the future. We know that the Olympics is coming to town in 2032 in Brisbane. And I think that's something that John and I and Imogen had chatted about in terms of what there needs to be kind of a vision kind of going forward. What's the goal in terms of where we're
I
taking
think
this,
it
same as
starts
South
with
Africa, same as UK?
it starts with awareness and education. Like there's a lot of you don't know what you don't know. I said that earlier, but from the doctors to the junior clubs to the physios, like it's a lot of information about your mouth, your airways, your breathing, your hygiene, your wisdom teeth, the bacterial load, and how it affects your performance. So that, you make the connection. The mouth is part of the rest of your body. I always explain it to people. The mouth is the beginning of your airways and your digestive tract. So anything there is going to be affected by what's happening in your mouth. So I think if we start like, even at unis, instead of teaching them the 32 adult teeth, 20 baby teeth, you need to foster those relationships and put an emphasis or a priority on dental oral hygiene and protection and have a presence.
Definitely.
But it goes back to someone who's willing to be present, because you'd rather do 10 veneers than
Yeah. I think that is the challenge, but it is difficult, and we have found it ourselves. Sports medics, as you said, that don't get the same education, and then they think they don't need us. And it's only a lot of doors only tend to open up whenever something happens, and they realize, oh, I actually need to get a dentist involved, and it's really trying to get them doors to open up before something actually happens.
That's how Dr. Brett Dorney got involved in the 2000 Olympics. I think it was a Canadian hockey team. He had an injury, and he's up in Pinball, closer to where they were playing or staying. So it's about, like, it was just serendipity. It was the right time, right place.
The challenge is trying to grow where we don't have to wait for an incident for the door to open to get in.
Yeah. I'm happy to help you grow in Australia.
So Australia, the biggest challenge in Australia, it's a little bit like we just recently helped Vivek launch in South Africa, but they have a similar challenge where the geographical size of Australia is a challenge. So it's made them grown. So say your Bulldogs are up in Townsville and they get an injury, that you have someone there to phone to say, can you do first aid till they get back? Can you do some sort of first step until we get back, and then report back and work in? So how do you see being able to grow like a sports dentistry network to cover?
Do that. I've had to do that when they were during COVID. I had a player who they were staying on the south coast of Queensland, and he got injured. So I just, in our Facebook dental forum, Australia Dentists, I think there's like 12,000 of us. I'm like, hey guys, I've got someone, I need to do this. One of the players moved to Canberra. I'm like, I need someone who can scan this patient. He's moved from Sydney. So we have that, that's a good thing, a silver lining of social media, where you can grow that platform. So I don't know any other way. Bring back the yellow pages.
But that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create that network, because we've got that kind of here now with the WhatsApp group, and it's very quick. You can just put it in there and say, who's in this city, can you see this player? Or if they don't know somebody else well. But I think it's important for the medics to be able to know that they don't have to go chasing their tails, and they don't have to go and do all the messages. They can just, for example, send a message to you, say, look, we're in Townsville or we're in Byron Bay or wherever they are. We need to see somebody. Can you find out? And then before you know it, that's what happened. And we're very fortunate
that's what I've been doing. Just whoever's got my number.
I would just like to justify my statement that Umar follows his son. As far as I know, there's no rugby league team in Byron Bay, but that's where his focus is. His focus is on Byron Bay.
No, there isn't.
Wait, they'll just make a little pit stop in Byron Bay on the way up. That's all. Yeah, but hopefully, I mean, it's very exciting. You know, we're what 6 or 7 months out now, and it's the momentum's starting to build. I know you've got a big weekend coming up now with ADEX up there, so I'm sure
Yeah,
you'll do your
yeah.
best to spread the word. But you know, we'll obviously be in contact quite a fair bit in the lead up to it. And you know, John loves flying, and he loves
I
being in
love
the
long
air.
flights. Yeah.
Oh, when I flew over to Dublin, that was the longest flight of my
Yeah.
life. I was like, oh my gosh, that was so long. That was like 9 years ago. I was like, then
Tough. It's tough.
we did Ireland, and then we flew to Liverpool because my friend had to go. Our whole trip for her 40th was about the Everton game.
All right.
So I'm like, oh,
I was banking on you saying Liverpool or doing the Beatles tour.
Yeah.
I went to Everton versus Tottenham. Everton got smashed 4-0, but I went in my Bulldogs jersey because it's a blue
Have
team.
the, have the colours. Yeah, yeah.
And then all you see, people are coming out of the woodworks, coming out of line, buying their drink. They're like, excuse me, love. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, is Hazem Al Masri playing? Because I had a Lebanon beanie on and I had the Bulldogs
Okay.
jersey. And Hazem grew up playing. So he was the greatest ever point scorer until a few years ago. And he's Lebanese kid from Tripoli who grew up playing soccer and then became an aerial player. So I was just like, my friends
Okay.
were like, you're not wearing that in Liverpool. I went to the Beatles pub, the Cavern, in
Yes.
my jersey.
Yeah. Oh, love it. You go downstairs and that's great. Yeah. Great spot.
Yeah, no, you'll see me. If there's someone, I'm the random Bulldogs girl who's wearing Bulldogs jersey everywhere. I take it all over the world.
How are the Bulldogs? How are the Bulldogs this way? Are they competing? You said in the 80s they were very dominant. How have they been in recent years? Do you get many big days out?
Yes. With the Bulldogs, I think they're the best at community interactions. And
So you haven't won anything in a while, yeah? I'm only joking.
you guys are coming 1 week late because the NRL Grand Final is the week before the Bledisloe Cup.
Oh, it's
Is
the
it?
weekend
Okay.
before.
Yeah, it's the
Is the Australia New Zealand playing in the rugby league on the
so
Thursday?
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
at the end of the year we have the Rugby League World Cup. So England's coming over. We've got Lebanon, we've got France, we've got all the island countries coming. I'm not sure if America qualified this time, but yeah, there's a few. It's a comp that's coming back. We last had it in Australia it was in England 3 years ago, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
And does the grand is there much of a break between the grand final and that kicks off?
Well, I think it's a month, but like most of the teams won't make it. Like end of September, beginning of September is when the main round, the main comp finishes, and then you have the 8 finals team, and then they'll get, whoever gets picked will go into camp, and the others just go to Bali, not their wisdom teeth.
Very good. So the Bulldogs, great. They're really good at the community. Like I would say that there's great atmosphere then at the home games, is there?
We broke the record last year for the most. We had, I think, 65,000 people at the Good Friday match against the Rabbitohs.
Really?
So
Okay.
our crowd, we went through a really rough patch 5 years ago when we were wooden spooners and churning over players, and we're hitting a green patch now. So hopefully we can break that drought and get a premiership soon.
And like, did COVID have a big impact then on like
Yeah.
the experiences of it and home
Yeah.
matches and crowds going and things like
Yeah,
that?
I remember in 2020 they had cardboard cutouts at stadiums, and then when because the comp didn't finish till November because it was like 3 months of no comp until Peter Philanders,
Yeah.
who is the guy in charge, came in and revamped it, put the bubble for them, and like made them like untouchable in a little bubble. And I remember the first game I went to was like 50 people allowed. and then it was 500 allowed. So it was literally in a box.
Okay.
Then you have to wear a mask and all that. So it was
it's crazy, isn't it?
very interesting to navigate. We lost a lot of sponsors during that time, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's and credit to them, they actually credited us and reduced the prices the next year. Everyone suffered. The big institutions
Yeah.
suffered. The small institutions, the people who had their $100 membership, they were offered refunds if they didn't want it. So they were really proactive with the community over that.
And how are you able to, like, how did that impact your ability to support them from a sports dentistry point of view over that time? Was that also something that wasn't able to happen?
Besides sports dentistry, 2020 I was closed for 8 weeks, and 2021 I was closed for 11 weeks. That's over like 20. No, sorry, it was 22 weeks all up over 2 years that my practice was closed. The government just kept putting these ridiculous rules, lockout rules, 5-kilometre radius. Dentistry in some LGAs, the local government areas, was emergency only, and then the next suburb over was essential treatment, and then you'd have them saying whitening was essential, and we're like, how do you justify that? Is it psychological? So then they brought in the vaccine mandate. So I had pushback from staff members who said they don't want to get vaccinated, and it was a horrible time to navigate. It was. I hope it never gets repeated. Thank God it's over. But
I don't think people would react the same. I don't think people would accept things the way they accepted with COVID if something like that was to happen again.
Yeah, no. But if there was
It was a strange time.
emergencies, it'd be one patient allowed. I'll keep the door closed, and then you just swap them out.
Yeah.
It was very hard.
When you think back now, it almost feels like a dream, almost like it didn't happen.
You know, there was the period in 2021. My niece at 4 years old was diagnosed with brain cancer, and navigating the hospital system and the rules of where you can go and where you can't go was very, very hard on my brother and his wife and all of us. And then to the point where they changed the rules overnight when he's taken her in for radiation or chemo, and you need to get a rat test or you need to get the swab done. And it was so difficult to navigate that period. And even when she passed away in July 2022, at her funeral, we intentionally didn't do hugs and kisses, and everyone got COVID except us. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
It's awful.
Brain cancer is the biggest killer of kids in Australia. And that's one of the reasons I pulled back my sponsorship of a lot of. I used to sponsor the Bexley North Soccer Club, Marconi Soccer Club, the rugby, Rockdale Rugby. And anyone who asked me, I'd be like, yep. And then COVID hit, and then Natalia got sick, and I was like, no. The most underfunded disease is childhood brain cancer. I didn't mean to dampen the mood. But
really should be. It's real, but that's real life. That's life.
And credit to the Bulldogs. We have Mark Hughes Foundation Brain Cancer Awareness Week around during the football. Mark Hughes played for Newcastle Knights, and he has had, and he's still with us, recovering from brain cancer surgery. So they sell beanies every year. So I've been buying that since day dot, and it kind of hit home when Natalia got sick with brain cancer. But that, the players wore during that round, they all wore her name on their wrist.
Oh, that's nice.
And we were at my brother's house watching it, and she saw her name when the guy went to his scored, and she's like, "Oh, that's me!" Like it, nice. They went above and beyond with my family, supporting us during that horrible time. So anytime I can raise awareness, I kind of do, and it's just refocused on kind of what is priority. So my passion is sports dentistry, but I don't Bleeding Heart used to sponsor every childhood disease thing. And then I was like, yeah, no, autism is not terminal.
I think that shows the power of sport and why we're all in sports dentistry, because sport's so powerful, and the fact that they were able to do that and have our name in the wrist and bring people together and the community together. It's one of the reasons why we're trying to combine careers or trying our career in dentistry with our love of sport. It's because what sport brings together and the community brings.
It's a sense of community, especially in our area here, where there's a thing, if you Google it or YouTube it, the Bulldogs win and they close down the whole street. It's just a normal game. It's not a final. The whole street gets closed.
But that's an important topic that you talked about there as well, because we've talked about on the podcast before that my wife was diagnosed with cancer last year, and we talked about that because yes, we are amalgamating our love of sport and with dentistry, but it's also important that there's other things that are going on. And we do like to touch on these sort of subjects because it's really important that we're all human at the end of the day, and everybody's fighting their own battles. And so it's really, if we can get a release by me and John having some crack and having some nice guests on like yourself, then it's quite nice to do that. And it's always very good to support charities, whatever charity that is close to your heart. Yeah. And it's really great to see that Bulldogs supported you in that as well. And that just goes to, but that's also a reflection on you and your personality and what you've done for them as well. So credit to you too. So you should take some credit from that as well. And I think it's great that they did that for your family. So look, I'm really excited to actually meet you in person later on this year. I think we're going to get on like a house on fire. And I
really want a tour of your clinic. I really want to see this. This clinic, like you have some unbelievable photos up on the wall.
So this is that's the captain. That's my first year in 2018 sponsoring, and that's the captain. I got number 11. I went to Papua New Guinea in 2019 with the team, with some of the players for a volunteer trip. That was extraordinary. Like that was Papua New Guinea worship footballers. It was, we were on the equator on an island, no reception, no water, no bathroom, no internet, no electricity for a whole week. And it was the weirdest thing. It was primitive and it was so nice. Like, it was just one of the most amazing experiences. So this is Robbie Farrell, who's one of my friends. And then the Lebanon jerseys there, my team photo. And then we go around. This is 2004, our team, that one. And last year I had number 13. So each year I get a different number. This is one of my favorites, Jacob Perez. I had him the year before, but this is the special ones. This is the team of the century, the Australian team of the century. And you have people like Arthur Beetson. You have people like Noel Dally Messenger. Like you've got Clive Churchill, who the grand final medal is named after. And then you have the Australian captains. So these are all from different charities that, you go and you bid on them and you win them. So, And then this is, cool. I'm actually getting personal now. I'm going into night surgery room and I've got an art gallery from my nieces and nephews. And even my clock says Dr. Joanne up on my clock. And my nephew's done Meet the Bulldogs. So the players come in and they see her. And then if they don't see themselves, they're like Josh Curran wasn't there. And then he's like, I sent a video to my nephew. Josh is like, where's mine? Where's my photo? Like that kind of a vibe. But yeah, it's cool. This is where my pride and joy. That's Natalia. That's her last game.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that was at that game. She vomited all over the corporate box, and the Bulldogs sent us a jersey set for her to change into. And then her identical twin sister got jealous, and they sent her the same thing. And it was like on the day, the merch person came up and gave it. But that was when we found out she had brain cancer. So yeah, it's bittersweet, but yeah, it's about community for me. It's about family, and that's why I do what I do. So they all become my family, so to speak.
And you end up building these relationships, like as you said at the start of the podcast, when you first go in, and they're like, you're almost going in like a fan, and then you get to realize they're just normal people, and then you build these relationships, and that's one of the other great things of sports dentistry.
Yeah. And it's humbling for the players because they walk in here and my practice manager and most of the girls don't know who they are. Unless you're wearing your gear, you're treated like a normal person, and they love it. They love it until there's one of the kids or teenagers, they're like, oh. And then I say to the players, I'm like, you were once that age, who did you react like that to?
Yeah.
And then they, you know, you take them back to where they were.
Yeah, definitely.
Joanne's been brilliant chatting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to catching up in person later on in the year.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. But that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that.
No, thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
It's good chatting. You have a good evening. I'm off to buy some dental stuff. Going shopping.
Yeah. Go ahead. Enjoy yourself.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Joanne. See you later.